He buys an old mirror at a yard sale. At night, he sees a girl in the reflection, but she's not behind him. As he investigates, he learns she died in that house, waiting for someone to hear her story. Ethan Carter was not a man who believed in ghosts. He was a pragmatist, a high school history teacher who dealt in facts, dates, and the occasional dusty antique that caught his eye. So when he spotted the old mirror at the yard sale on Maple Street, he didn't think twice about its chipped mahogany frame or the faint scratches on its glass. It was a steal at $20, and it would look perfect in the hallway of his new fixer-upper house. "Careful with that," the old woman running the sale had said, her voice raspy as she handed him the mirror wrapped in a tattered blanket. "It's got history."
Ethan chuckled. "Everything old does." She didn't smile back, just watched him load the mirror into his pickup truck with a look that lingered too long. That night, Ethan propped the mirror against the wall in his sparsely furnished living room. The house was a century old, with creaky floors and peeling wallpaper, but it was his, a fresh start after the divorce. He was still unpacking, boxes scattered like tombstones across the hardwood. The mirror's reflection caught the dim glow of a single lamp, making the room feel both larger and lonelier. He went to bed early, exhausted from moving. The house groaned around him, settling into the night. Around 2 a.m., he woke with a start, though he couldn't say why. The air felt heavy, like someone had left a window open in a storm. He shuffled downstairs for a glass of water, his bare feet cold against the floor. As he passed the mirror, he froze. In the reflection, there was a girl. She was young, maybe 17, with pale skin and dark hair that fell in loose waves over a white dress. Her eyes were wide, locked on his, but when Ethan spun around, the room was empty. Just boxes and shadows. He turned back to the mirror, heart pounding. She was still there, staring, her lips parted as if she wanted to speak. "Hello." Ethan's voice cracked. He stepped closer, his reflection overlapping hers. The girl didn't move, but her eyes followed him, pleading. He reached out, touching the glass. It was ice cold, and for a split second, he swore he felt a faint pressure, like fingers brushing his. He stumbled back, his breath short. "This is crazy," he muttered, rubbing his eyes. When he looked again, the reflection showed only himself, disheveled, wide-eyed, and very much alone. Sleep was impossible after that. By morning, Ethan convinced himself it was a dream, a trick of exhaustion and an overactive imagination. He moved the mirror to the upstairs hallway, out of sight from the living room, and threw himself into unpacking. But the girl's face haunted him. Her expression wasn't fear or anger, but something desperate, like she needed him to understand. Over the next few days, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The house felt different, colder, heavier, especially near the mirror. He avoided it, taking the long way around to his bedroom, but at night, he'd catch himself glancing at it, half expecting her to reappear. On Friday, he couldn't stand it anymore. He drove to the local library, a squat brick building that doubled as the town's historical society. If the mirror had history, as the old woman said, maybe he could find out what it was. The librarian, a wiry man named Harold with glasses perched on his nose, listened to Ethan's vague questions about the house on Maple Street. "Old place, that one," Harold said, pulling out a binder of newspaper clippings. "Built in 1890 by the Whitaker family. Stayed in their hands until the 1940s. After that, it changed owners a dozen times. Some folks say it's cursed." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Cursed?" Harold shrugged. "People talk. There was a death in that house, back in 1923. Young girl, Abigail Whitaker. Fell down the stairs, broke her neck. Tragic, really. She was only 16. Ethan's stomach twisted. "Any pictures of her?" Harold dug through a box of faded photographs and pulled out a sepia-toned portrait. The girl in the photo had dark hair, pale skin, and wide eyes that seemed to pierce through time. It was her, the girl in the mirror. Back home, Ethan stood in front of the mirror, the photograph trembling in his hand. "Abigail," he whispered, testing the name. The glass stayed empty, reflecting only his tired face. But he felt it again, that pressure, like the air itself was waiting that he started researching in earnest, scouring online archives and local records. Abigail Whittaker had been the only daughter of Edward and Clara Whittaker, a wealthy couple who'd lost everything in the stock market crash of 1929. The official report said Abigail's death was an accident, but rumors swirled. Some said she'd been pushed. Others claimed she'd been waiting for someone, a lover, maybe, who never came. The details were murky, buried in gossip and time. That night, Ethan sat cross-legged in front of the mirror, a flashlight casting harsh shadows across the room. "Abigail," he said softly. "If you're here, I want to know your story. I'm listening." The air grew colder, the kind of chill that seeps into your bones. In the mirror, her reflection flickered into view, faint at first, like a shadow under water. She was closer now, her face clearer. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Ethan leaned forward, straining to understand. "Tell me," he said. "What happened to you?" Her eyes darted to the side, as if looking at something behind her. Then, slowly, she raised a hand and pointed downward, toward the floor. Ethan followed her gaze, confused. The hallway floor was just old wood, scuffed and worn. But as he looked closer, he noticed a loose board near the baseboard, slightly raised that he grabbed a screwdriver from his toolbox and pried the board up. Beneath it was a small, dusty compartment, and inside was a bundle of letters tied with a faded ribbon. His hands shook as he untied them. The paper was brittle, the ink faded, but the words were clear enough. The letters were from Abigail to someone named Thomas, dated 1922 and 1923. They were love letters, full of longing and promises. She wrote about meeting him in secret, about her father's disapproval, about her fear that Thomas would leave her. The last letter, dated the day before her death, was different. It was frantic, pleading, "I'll wait for you at the top of the stairs. Please, come tonight. I can't stay in this house any longer." Ethan's throat tightened. He looked back at the mirror. Abigail was still there, her expression softer now, almost relieved. "You were waiting for him," he said. "But he didn't come." Her reflection nodded, a single, slow movement. Then she pointed again, this time toward the staircase at the end of the hall. Ethan stood, his legs unsteady. The staircase was narrow, the wood polished smooth by decades of use. He climbed to the top, where "I hear you," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the fear curling in his chest. "I know your story now. What do you need me to do?" Abigail's reflection stepped closer, her hand pressing against the inside of the glass. Her eyes were no longer desperate but calm, almost grateful. She mouthed one word, "Tell." Ethan nodded. "I will. I promise." The next day, he contacted the Historical Society and shared Abigail's story, leaving out the ghostly details. He donated the letters, along with the photograph, to be archived and displayed. He wrote a blog post for the local paper, titled "The Forgotten Girl of Maple Street," detailing Abigail's life and her tragic end. He didn't mention the mirror or her father's possible role. Some truths were better left to whispers, but he made sure her name was remembered. The mirror stayed in the hallway, but Abigail never appeared again. The house felt lighter, the air less heavy. Ethan sometimes caught himself glancing at the glass, half hoping to see her, to know she'd found peace. But the reflection showed only him, and that was enough. One night, as he passed the mirror, he paused and smiled. "Rest well, Abigail," he said softly. "Your story's been told." And somewhere, in the quiet spaces between this world and the next, he felt sure she heard him.